Okay, hello everyone. Yes, today we're going to be talking about scams. This is the 36th edition of Sofia Crypto Meetup. And as you can see, we have moved to Puzl because Beta House are moving to a new location. And they don't have conference halls, places still. So for now, we'll be doing our meetups here. So we're doing the first one on Friday because there were not any other slots available for this month, but from next month it will be the same schedule as always, the last Wednesday of the month, 7:30, and today is 7, again, it's weird, but we had to do it, otherwise the next available date was in April. So we're going to start with a little introduction to a conference, an interesting conference that is happening in 35 days, and then we're going to jump into the main topic, which is identifying scams. And I give the word to Ilyan.
Hi guys, I'm Ilyan Kirkov, and this is the Liberty Biz conference, which will happen for the second time this year. Last time, Vladi was also one of our speakers, and I'm very proud that the Bulgarian blockchain community has so remarkable people which are worth to be there and to share their wonderful content. This year's focus is on decentralization and independent way of living. The problem is, after getting so much power, centralized power, into a small amount of players, at the end, always the people or the society is in a very bad position. So I'd like to stress out the risks for society and for the individuals, and how the technologies can be, if not a full solution, at least part of the solution and no alternative. So how we may live independently or autonomously, or at least less dependently to monopoly structures from any kind. So this is the main topic, the main goal of this conference, to raise the awareness. And the main 4 topics are blockchain, privacy, free software, and independent living. So we have people from the blockchain society in Bulgaria, from the blockchain sphere. We have people from the free software in privacy community from Europe, representative of Free Software Foundation Europe. Last year we had Richard Stallman, which is the president of the Free Software Foundation and movement. So it will be interesting for the second time, I promise, and I will be very honored if you would like to attend. So that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I was actually part of the previous conference. It was really interesting. So if you are into decentralization, I would suggest to visit the conference. It's quite an interesting one. Interesting speakers, not only from Bulgaria, but from around the world. And I'll give the word now to Ivan, who will be starting with the biggest news in March.
Hi, second time around. So because last time I spoke a lot, this time we're doing only the top 3. That's the usual poll we have in the group, where people say what's the thing that made them move the most during the month. So this month we have CBOE delisting Bitcoin futures, the Ethereum hard forks, and the fact that Tether is admitting to not being one-to-one backed by USD. So yeah, the CBOE delisting the Bitcoin futures, basically, as per usual, the traders on crypto Twitter overreacted. This doesn't mean that Bitcoin is dead and like there is no institutional interest. As you can see here, basically the thing that happened was that CME just outperformed CBOE dramatically, and that's why CBOE decided to discontinue the product. Basically, with exchanges there is massive network effects, and I added another graph, this one, which I found pretty interesting. So basically 20% of the exchanges that closed down, they closed down because of lack of liquidity. So CBOE was just one of those things. Life goes on. There are other exchanges coming up with Bitcoin futures, backed and ErisX being the most high-profile ones. The second part of the second topic of the top news was the Ethereum hard forks. They were scheduled for January, but there were some issues, vulnerabilities, and that's why they were delayed. Basically, Constantinople is the scheduled one, and St. Petersburg is just a patch that has to fix the vulnerability that caused the delay. It's one of those forks that was described as nobody would notice. Miners begged disagree because basically, like the biggest change was decrease of the block reward from 3 ETH to 2 ETH, and as you can see on the graph, okay, so like March is somewhere here. So basically, like it didn't impact the hash rate drastically. So even though there was a lot of, oh my God, what's going to happen? Nothing really happened on the hash rate side of things. And last but not least, Tether is saying that they're not backed one-to-one. Yeah, I put the specific quote, which basically says that some of the backing is receivables by parties that they lent money out to. And I spoke with one of the guys at Ethefinex, which is like part of the same group. He said that has been on the website for a few months actually, but just nobody bothered to read it. And like now, a few weeks ago, it got a lot of public attention. Nobody cared. Nobody was surprised. It was a lot of buzz. And yeah, as you can see, like the market didn't really react. So this, I mean, it's trading a bit above the peg. Yeah, a few months back, before the big moves in November, there was some FUD around Tether. Maybe that's when insiders found out about this. I don't know, but that's when there was a massive overreaction of the peg breaking, etc. Now it's back to normal, but Tether has been gradually losing dominance among stablecoins, with a lot of the others gaining traction. I just couldn't find a graph, but basically their market share dropped from close to 100% in 2017, 2018 to lows of about 74% over the past few months. So that's probably one of the reasons why they decided to expand their balance without actually having the backing in the bank. And with that, I'm gonna give the floor. Oh, yeah. Back to Vladi, maybe.
Yes. Okay, so these graphs are simply representing the price of Bitcoin at the dates of the different meetups that we have already had. And you can see where we started in 2016 and what is the situation now. Just a little bit of hope right there at the end. And we have done the same thing for Ether. Ether again, maybe a little bit of hope right there, but generally one, well, looks like a middle finger, to be honest. And yes, so this is the topic of today. It's identifying scams. And I'll be doing a short presentation on this topic, and then we'll have a short panel and questions from the audience maybe. And yeah, but before we start, I'll give the word to Ivo to introduce our special guest.
So, just want to say that Jamie is here tonight. Jamie, please stand up. Who is one of the very active investors in the crypto space via their fund Outlier Ventures. He's popping up in Sofia for 3 days. So it was last minute that we invited him in. And he'll share a little bit about what they do in Outlier. And obviously, we invited to join the panel to say how you guys look at these, evaluate crypto projects, basically how you, read the bullshit of crypto scams, right? So yeah, Vlad, if you want to do the presentation afterwards, we can just invite you. Yeah, cheers.
All right, so why are we doing this topic at all? So what happened in March, on March 8th, the Department of Justice, the US Department of Justice, basically, why is this moving? they published a statement online saying that OneCoin is a scam, and they have actually arrested the current director or founder of OneCoin, whose name is Konstantin Ignatov, I think. Ruja Ignatova, who is the founder of OneCoin, is still at large and is being searched for throughout the world. And the interesting thing here is that OneCoin is a scam that is associated with Bulgaria, and also at the same time with cryptocurrencies. And the media in Bulgaria simply exploded with news about this event. And everybody was wondering, why is this happening? I mean, didn't people know that OneCoin is a scam, and so forth and so on? And actually, I have met Ruja back in 2014 during the first Bitcoin conference, which was organized in Bulgaria, actually the first and the last. Then we had other events, but yeah, it was organized by a friend of mine. And even back then, and I spoke with her people, and they didn't have any idea about the technology behind cryptocurrencies, about blockchain, about basically what anyone who is in the space should know. And from there on, we started to mention during these events and other events, or I have done it personally, that people should be very, very careful with OneCoin because it's a very dodgy project and not really a cryptocurrency. But let's just quickly jump into I'm not sure why is this thing moving all around. Yeah, hopefully, yeah, you don't see the pointer too much. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through my slides. I have prepared a couple of slides for you how to identify scams. I mean, some of them are very straightforward and logical, but I guess even if they are that logical and obvious, people don't really follow these advices. So the first and very, 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 very important advice is simply not to be stupid. And even in the announcement or the indictment online from the Department of Justice, there was a quote by this guy, Konstantin Ignatov, who said that, as you told me, the network would not work with intelligent people. So usually the scams are trying to go after people who don't have much critical thinking. And this is a problem because they fall for obvious scams. And here we have also like a photo of him from his Facebook page, which is obviously like trying to justify his absence from being online or from being active or something. And he's trying to kind of like to downplay it, that he was robbed or something, and that's why he hasn't been online. But he's okay, and he's doing his work. Everything's fine with the project. And generally, just a simple Google search comes out with a number of, this is the first page, of course, a number of articles which state that OneCoin is a scam. And people should be like very careful with doing anything related to OneCoin. And I mean, who is unable to do a simple Google search? And like for me, it's a bit weird. How is this possible? How do you fall for something that it's quite obviously online and people are talking about that it's a scam? And one of the reasons that this could be the case is also the lack of being able to understand the English language, I guess. So if you don't understand English, and this is, I think, something that I have identified as a problem, you simply are excluded from a large part of the information that is online. And for example, people in Bulgaria who are into the OneCoin scam, I know some of them, and they don't know English. So they are exposed only to the information that they are being provided with by the scammers themselves, or by other people who are into the scam themselves. So the second reason is don't be greedy. And so we have this, I have this observation that there are these certain people who simply jump from MLM scheme to MLM scheme. And and it's basically, this is work for them. So it's like you jump into the first MLM train, you try to get as many people into it to maybe somehow earn some money and possibly get the money out of the scheme in time. And then when this MLM scheme explodes, you jump to the next one and then do the same thing and then to the next one, to the next one. So they're basically serial MLM people who are doing this all the time, and they are promoting these scams, like first this scam, then that scam, then the other scam. And what people generally fall for the most is the get rich quickly scheme. And all of these scams, all of the MLM style scams are promising huge returns for minimum risk and very short time, or maybe 1 year, 2 years. And if you are greedy and you want to make money and you think the risk is very low when the risk is super high, then you fall for a scam. And this is the favorite. This is my very most favorite thing maybe of all. They always, or most of the times, they have some kind of package. So you need to buy some kind of package in order to start earning. And not only that, but then you need to get more people to buy this package so that they are under you, and they need to get more people under that, under them. And then the whole goal is to be very early into the scam. And I know people who have involved family members and friends who lost all of their money because of this promotion of these packages. And this is the case of OneCoin. And this is actually the current case. This is actually functioning website, so OneCoin is still going on. Not sure in which jurisdiction, not in the States most probably, but in other countries. There are 195 countries in this world, and the OneCoin scam was like an infection going through first this, then that, then all of them and whatever. Maybe not all of them, but a huge number of countries. And in the beginning, these packages were mining packages. So now they kind of pivoted their idea into educational packages. So they are selling information on how can you become a trader. And with these packages, I think there are some coins that you're going to get in the future, and if the price goes up, if something happens in the future, you'll get rich. And this is a general theme, not only in OneCoin. But in the beginning, it was mining. You are buying, there was even more obvious in the beginning, you are buying a package which allowed for you to start mining basically an unexistent coin. And maybe they thought that this is not well thought of at some point, or maybe it's a problem because there is actually no blockchain related to OneCoin, so there is no mining. They decided to move to something more universally understandable, which is education. We will educate you how to start earning money as a trader. And for that, you just need to pay 55,000 euros for some reason. So they are maybe not always, but some of them are trying to present themselves as when you're giving money to them, it's not an investment, it's simply something you're paying for some service. And in this case, education. And yeah, Premium, Pro, Super Infinity, Plus Super, blah, all kinds of names are available, depending on the scam. Then, in the case of OneCoin, there were numerous warnings from different jurisdictions. And I'm generally not super, happy with these because I don't trust them all the time. But when you have, I don't know how many these countries are, and I'm sure there are more, warning people that OneCoin is a scam and arresting people related to OneCoin. You should start. Your minimum amount of critical thinking should kind of kick in and tell you that something is not as it should be. And what actually happens is that when a news like that appears online, the OneCoin evangelists start playing it down by saying that this is some kind of a world conspiracy, and that the whole, basically somebody is looking for a scapegoat for something, and they're trying to stop the progress of, in this case, OneCoin, because it's so innovative, it's so great that it's a threat to them. And there are people who fall for that. And a large part of these people are people who have invested in OneCoin, maybe their life savings, so they simply don't want to believe maybe that the reality is bad and that this is really a scam. And usually they're very unrealistic statements. In the case of Bitcoin, I've seen Ruja talk about how Bitcoin was the first step, but OneCoin is the next best thing, the most transparent blockchain in existence, and you can get huge returns. So that was in the beginning. Now they're just selling educational packages. They evolved, so to say. Usually it relates to money. If you get some people in, they get some people in, and so forth and so on, you get huge returns in the future. Something very common for such schemes, at least a bit more successful ones, is the flashy parties. And this is just taken from one video that still is online, and there were a number of videos online which was showing Ruja's birthday party and OneCoin party or whatever, and there's always like very flashy images of people having a great time and so forth and so on. And this is just an approach of how to market the scam in order for people to believe that the scam is also associated with some influential people, with rich people. Perhaps they're rich because they bought some OneCoins. So it's kind of, this is something very common, and OneCoin, I think they maybe even took it to another level. I've seen a couple of videos, and it was really, when you think about what's happening in the actual projects which are working on a technology like actual cryptocurrency and actual blockchain, for example, Bitcoin, I've never seen such a flashy Bitcoin party or a Litecoin party or something like this. I know there are a number of tokens out there that are kind of following this approach of the flashy parties and join our ICO. So the idea here is that scams, they go the full spectrum. Like you can imagine any kind of scam, but going from something I don't know, any approach that you can imagine, they have went through it, and there is a scam related to this approach. So when people ask like, okay, so OneCoin is a scam, but how is OneCoin different from cryptocurrencies? And this is like, this is a question that actually I haven't included in this presentation. I think it's going to be a very interesting topic for the panel. Like, what are the differences between the OneCoin scam and actual cryptocurrency? So maybe we can talk about this later. The next thing, I mean, these are your leaders, guys. Like, these are the people who are telling you that you need to invest into something, like to give 55,000 euros to something that is supposed to be the next big thing in cryptocurrency, that doesn't have a blockchain, that is not publicly traded, so there is no price for this thing. I mean, there is a price, but it's not created by supply and demand. And I mean, if these people look like role models to you, then maybe you deserve to get scammed. Because I mean, for me, even from the very beginning, actually, Ruja, there was always something about her. I've never liked her, I don't know, like expression. And I mean, it's not about beauty or not beauty. It's just this thing that she's emanating.
Sometimes scammers are very likable, so that's.
Yes. To be actually completely fair, this guy, I've taken this from a screenshot from a video where he explains, I think 10, 15 or 20 minutes, how he got very disturbed by what's happening in OneCoin, and how the promises were never made, how people started leaving OneCoin for no apparent reason, and how one day he found out that the OneCoin blockchain is there, while he thought that the OneCoin blockchain was there 1 year ago. So he just found out that somebody said, everything's fine, we now have a blockchain. And this guy said, well, I thought there was a blockchain 1 year ago. But so I cannot say if he was honest or why was he doing this. You can see his surroundings are very flashy. He has a beautiful girl next to him. So I'm not sure how honest he is. He kind of sounded honest, but I guess the best scammers sound like this. And this is actually the guy who got arrested by the US authorities in the beginning of March. And this is the brother of Ruja Ignatova. People looking like this. Now I'm just going to briefly go through some of the points that were mentioned in the Department of Justice indictment statement that was published online, so that we can see what the guys found out about, the regulators found about OneCoin. So first word, multi-level marketing. Whenever I hear this, I mean, for me, it's a totally no-go. I just simply hate multi-level marketing. And usually people who are into multi-level marketing, they try to convince you that everything is multi-level marketing. You know, referrals, it's the same thing. But actually, it's really not the same thing, because you're basically trying to, your primary work is not to sell a product or a service, or maybe there is a product or a service, but this is not the focus of it. It's just like an excuse to be going to people, telling them to buy these packages or get into the scheme under you, of course. You need to have people under you. And there was even this meme that I couldn't find. Actually, I forgot to find it. It was this, somebody opening a door and somebody at the door with something behind his back. And it was like an old friend. And the guy who was standing in front of the door with something behind his back was MLM scheme. So if you have people who come to you, like you've never heard of them, or like a friends from your high school days, and they start talking to you that they have a business and they will be doing a presentation in a few days, and they invite you to go and see the presentation because it's a cool business. It's usually an MLM scheme. So, actually this has happened to me a number of times. This is the mining thing that I talked about in the beginning. So they're basically saying there is mining, but all mining is done on our own servers. And this is not how mining really functions, but I guess many people don't understand how mining functions. If you know cryptocurrency, if you have any experience with cryptocurrency, you will know that Yeah, this statement on its own is a big red light. Then, as I mentioned, there is no price that is based on market supply or demand. So OneCoin was never listed on any exchange, any crypto exchange. And there are hundreds of crypto exchanges maybe now. And like all kinds of shit coins are listed on those. But OneCoin was never listed there. And the price was completely internally determined. And actually Ignatov manually was manually setting the price of OneCoin. And like maybe this was taken from some kind of a communication email or something that the DOG got. What we have else? Yeah, an email communication. Take the money and run. Blame somebody else for this. And this was written by Ruja herself. And actually, the whole thing that they have managed to get the emails of these guys, like the email correspondence, is a bit weird. They didn't take any like precautions to encrypt their communication, which is kind of logical, but. And then some people, especially the media, are asking, is Ruja Ignatova a genius? I mean, it's like the next scammer, more or less, not able to, yeah.
Just to give perspective, it was like a couple of billions in turnover.
Yeah, it's $3.5 billion.
Huge fucking scam, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not like a joke thing.
This is like the biggest maybe scam that was ever organized. And it was done not only by Ruja, but a few other guys who in the past have been involved in various other scams following the same pattern. So, I mean, it's the largest scam ever, but at the same time, they catch you with an email saying this. So, as I said, lacking a true blockchain. There is no blockchain, there is no history of transactions, you cannot see, you cannot enter an address and see like this address, how many OneCoins does it have, like where this address got the OneCoins from or whatever. Nothing like this exists. I think at one point they brought something out that kind of resembled a wallet, but at any point it was completely centralized. And for me, actually, the question is, since they have 3.5 billion, or let's say $2 billion, why weren't they able to simply fork Bitcoin or whatever and just have some kind of a blockchain? And maybe this is, maybe the scam was functioning as it should even without this. And if that was introduced, it would have made things more complex for the scammers. Yeah, and the coins, of course, the coins never existed, or if they existed, they were just some numbers on an Excel sheet or some kind of database or something. And even Ignatova was referring to them as fake coins. And this thing I didn't know. Ignatov, when he was captured in the US by the authorities, he was more or less promoting to US citizens initial public offering of OneCoin. And that's the other thing that I actually didn't put as a number. There's always something that you are waiting for to happen, especially in OneCoin. So is it, sometimes it's like, I think in OneCoin was the blockchain will go live on November 30th, and then November 30th comes and nothing significant happens. And then you have something, but Ruja will do a presentation on January 31st. And then you go to see the presentation, never happened, let's say. There was actually, they were expecting her a number of times to go and greet the troops, so to say. And she failed to appear in a number of conferences. So that was a letdown for a lot of investors. So yeah, the IPO was supposed to happen in 2018. I guess at some point was postponed to 2019, and then the person organizing it got jailed. And finally, this is what Ignatov said while in the States. And I guess when he went there, he was maybe followed, and some people from the Department of Justice went to his events, and he said, if you're here to cash out, just leave this room. So basically it's not possible to cash out. That's the other thing. When you have OneCoins, it's very, very hard to cash them out, to sell them for real fiat currency or for other cryptocurrency. There was some complications on this. I know that some people maybe were able to get their money out. I'm not sure under what circumstances. I think there was a limit. For example, you can get only, I don't know, 50 euros out per month or something like this. But some people were allowed to get more out. Maybe the higher tier bosses or whatever. And then there was a lot of money laundering through the Cayman Islands and the Republic of Ireland. And these guys who were actually laundering the money were also caught. Okay, so finally, let's look at some of the other scams out there. BitConnect was a popular scam for a very short period of time, I would say. And it became very popular because of this one guy shouting BitConnect like a crazy person, more or less. It's already a meme, and the video if you haven't seen the video, I would suggest to see it. It's just a crazy. The video is basically one guy on a big stage, because it should be flashy. You need to have a big stage. People behind him clapping, a huge hall with people also clapping, and he was just talking just crazy stuff. But yeah, this cryptocurrency was basically give us your Bitcoins and we'll give you BitConnect coins. And then if you provide BitConnect coins as loans, then you get more BitConnect coins. It was some kind of a scam. Again, you have this huge interest that you can get, 60% interest, depending on, I guess, how much money you put into the whole scam. They received cease and desist by the regulators. The token price went down 87%. I think currently it's like 98% down. So it's basically not completely worthless. And yeah, all the other things are as expected. Also, there is a class action lawsuit against BitConnect, and I'm wondering why there is not one class action lawsuit for OneCoin. So this is a mystery for me. I haven't heard about anything like that, and that's the biggest scam that has ever happened. So I don't know. Maybe at some point there will be one. Then PlexCoin, I haven't really heard about this, but again, you have large 300% returns on investments per month. Again, a cease and desist. Fortunately, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, froze the funds and maybe returned them to the investors, and the founder was jailed. Then we have Centra Tech, which I saw this in the media because at the height of the ICO, let's call it a bubble, there was like Floyd Mayweather and DJ Khaled announcing this scam and promoting it. And supposedly there was a partnership with Visa and MasterCard that basically was a lie. And arrested founders, but the ICO got $32 million. Most probably because of the marketing services by these two guys and other individuals, popular individuals. And this is just an example that I wanted to share. It's related to what I said, that MLM guys will always tell you that everything is a pyramid. So their scheme is also a pyramid, but it's fine because everything is a pyramid. Swisscoin. This thing, it's just about when OneCoin was kind of firing up, this thing appeared, and it's more or less identical to to OneCoin, to the idea behind OneCoin. But I guess these guys actually created some kind of a, maybe they created something like a coin. I went to their website. You can download a wallet. You can like for Windows, for iOS and stuff. But the problem here again is just the one single exchange that is trading this this coin, most probably owned by the Swiss coin guys. So again, a huge red light here. And as you can see, there is some kind of a, yeah, they know what they're talking about, proof of work, proof of stake, hybrid blockchain, total supply and stuff. And so they're kind of trying to present it more as a cryptocurrency. But I'm not sure exactly which regulator, but they, in Switzerland, they have this body that blacklists companies, and Swisscoin was blacklisted, of course. And they have this, of course, only 1,000 euros of initial investments. The future is now, blah, 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 the same stuff. And so this thing is the last thing that I'm going to be talking about. And I don't know if it's a scam, because it's very new and it's currently running. So it was sent to me by a friend who just received this in the mail or, I don't know, in Facebook. And it has the same kind of ideas. And when I hear, like when I see these structures, it's, as I said, it's a no-go for me. So the idea here is that basically you're buying some kind of bots that trade for you and possibly get you a good return on a daily basis. So you say like 20% returns since the start. I think 1% per day. So for 30 days, I think it's 30% on your investment. Their website doesn't say too much, but I think it's again a global thing, and it has specific representation. So it's like a franchise. They have a main company functioning with offices maybe in France, and then you have local franchise of people who are doing these bots. They try to look a bit more techy, but for me it smells a lot. I'm not saying it's a scam, but kind of walks and talks like a scam. So this is something like a warning to you guys to maybe have a look a bit more into this, because it might be the next thing that blows up. And this is Ivan. We want to present this as a conclusion, and after this we can start with the panel and the discussion.
Thanks. So yeah, those are like just a few of the very basic first check red flags that could be sort of a sanity check. Anything that says guaranteed return, just run. If people, especially if people you don't know well, approach you and give you this unique opportunity that's only for you, a huge red flag. The third one is lack of online presence of founders and teams or anonymous teams. And then there's always the argument, but Bitcoin was started by an anonymous team. Yes, but nobody asked for your money. Like it was, I'm launching this, it's fair, everyone can run the software on their machine. Like, I don't want your money. And so like but Bitcoin was launched by an anonymous person or team. That's not really an argument because they never asked for your money. The aggressive sales technique, so it's like, okay, you can only take advantage of this opportunity right now, like next week, tomorrow, in a few hours, it's not available. Huge referral programs where it's, so yeah, basically, because people started to understand the pyramid thing, so now it's like, okay, they just skip the levels and they say, okay, if you bring someone who invests, we'll give you 20% of what they invest. And it's like, okay, that does not sound like investing to me. Something like very simple everyone can do is a lot of those projects, they list advisors, partners, etc. You just reach out to those people, especially in the crypto space. People are very approachable. So if somebody's listed as an advisor, you can just shoot them a tweet or an email or whatever and be like, hey, are you actually associated with this project? I've had people say, no, I've never heard of this. And so that's like a very simple way to check what's going on. lack of code. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that's our secret sauce, and like that's why we're not going to publish. But we are doing an open source decentralized project, so that and the will not publish code doesn't work together. A clear lack of experience and expertise. I think the Nectar 2 guys talking about the financial revolution and writing cutting edge code is a bit of an indication of that. And then the last one, I think this like particularly relates to the ICOs, STOs, IEOs, whatever you want to call them. But if people are like, just give me your money, and they don't ask who you are, it means basically like they don't actually intend to do anything in the future, because everyone knows regulation will come after them, and if they don't check the identity of the people contributing to the project, this means that they don't actually plan to deliver. I mean, if people are asking about point your mining gear towards our code, that's a different story. They're not asking for money, so then like everyone can mine a chain. So it's a bit of a different.
KYC, it's a bit tricky for me because, for example, Ethereum did an ICO, and
that was like over 3 years ago.
But it was a very, very like long time ago, 2015 or 2016, and they actually delivered their product. So this, I mean, now it's a bit harder to do an ICO without KYC, but in the past there were projects who didn't go through ICO. Were actually good projects. I think Zcash never asked for this. Also, Dash, I think, never asked for this. It was mining in the case of Dash, though. But there are a number of projects that didn't go through KYC and can be considered valid projects. Are these all the slides that you have?
Yeah, it was just like.
Okay. So, okay.
Cool, guys. So that was more or less the topic of today. For us, that was important because this shit is associated with Bulgarian. We believe there are really great things happening here, a lot of development of new projects and things like that. And that's not very subtle. There are very subtle scams nowadays. Not very easy to find them because, OneCoin is super obvious. Like if you don't get it, as Vlad said, you deserve to be fucked. Because at the end of the day, it's for dumb people. But they are super subtle scams. And the funny thing, or the important thing of this whole new blockchain space is that we have a value sort of embedded in the system. And if there is value, there will be a lot of bad actors. Because, money is money. Everybody wants the Lamborghinis and shit. Give me the Lambo. That's the thing. But also with a lot of these projects, what I noticed is that many of these projects jump into the Bitcoin and blockchain space because they want the money. Usually they have no fucking use case for creating a blockchain project. But I can do an ICO, I can do a whatever STO, or whatever. I hate the fucking security shit. But now what is the new one? Initial exchange offering. Like, I'm not too sure about that. Maybe. Like, some of these things will be really, really valuable, new financial instruments and so on. But some of these things are just attracting people who go there for the wrong reasons, which is really bad. Then there is the advisor sort of scenario, which is, many people in the crypto space, probably you guys met them, but they have no clue. I can be an advisor of a company and they just become sort of a multi-level marketing scheme of themselves, You just become an advisor of different crypto projects, you get tokens and things like that. So the subtlety of these projects become much more complex to identify. That's why we want to create a panel. We will have a structure of this panel which is sort of different. We will always leave one of the chairs open. So if some of you want to get in, share their experience, ask questions, that's also possible, whatever you guys want to do. I wanted to introduce Jamie because Jamie is here for just a couple of days in Bulgaria. They are very reputable investors in the crypto space. They invested in companies like IOTA and Ocean Protocol, which are very famous, great companies. Their vision for the future is that these companies will be interlinked. Like the new Internet 3.0 is happening and these companies can interlink. So I just want to give you the floor to Jamie to say a little bit about the fund. Then you're invited to the panel. And then we'll talk about, maybe it would be great to share how you guys identify these kind of projects, how you make your due diligence, this kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, everybody can be a scammer nowadays in this space where we talk about billions, not like thousands. So yeah, I'll give the floor to Jamie and then we just jump on a panel. Cheers.
So you want to talk about that stuff on the panel, right?
Yeah, on the panel, yeah, okay. Now you can just think about the fund.
So Outlier Ventures has been around for just under 5 years. We're one of the first dedicated blockchain investors in Europe. Initially it was kind of generically looking at blockchain, and since then we've evolved the thesis to something we call the convergence thesis. And that's evolved even further into something we call the convergence stack, which you were alluding to. And effectively for us, when we look at distributed ledger technology, the three innovations. So DLT, smart contracts, and then the innovation of digital scarcity, so digital assets. The combination of these three things give us a new web architecture to have a native economic layer to the web and enable all kinds of economic activity to happen that wasn't previously possible. And what's most interesting for us isn't necessarily consumer use cases, but actually thinking about how this architecture can be used for the machine-to-machine economy, and increasingly things like agent-to-agent environments. So Fetch.ai was a recent one that went through Binance Launchpad and was focused upon enabling digital representatives to have economic agency, carry out economic activity on behalf of a device or a person. So for us, when we're looking at the space, we only invest at the protocol layer, so open source, permissionless protocols that are tokenized or will eventually be tokenized. So we have some like Sovereign, which is currently the main identity solution for Hyperledger Indy, but is looking at tokenizing at a certain point in the future, and I have to be careful what I say with cameras here. But effectively, we're looking at kind of these core infrastructures that are going to enable the next phase of the web. And interestingly, we'll probably talk about it a little bit later when we're talking about applications. But most of the more scammy ICOs that happened were at the application layer. For us, we avoided almost any investments at the application layer because we knew that the infrastructure just wasn't there to enable it. So unless these guys were going to raise the money and then build the whole stack to execute on that use case, it was unlikely that it would happen. And of course, when you look at their teams, they had no development talent at all. That was looking very unlikely. So we focused exclusively at the infrastructure layer. So that's Outlier Ventures.
Cool. Yeah, actually, this is very true what you're saying, and this is something that I also identified. At the peak of the ICO bubble, there were primarily apps, so some kind of a service that's going to be built on a blockchain that will revolutionize some kind of an industry. And I would say 95, maybe 98% of all of these applications was simply unrealizable due to the fact that the infrastructure, the blockchain behind them, usually Ethereum, was simply not ready to scale, or the development needed to actually make these applications possible was not there, or was very slow to appear, and so forth and so on. But let's jump into the panel. Maybe how should we start? With a question or?
What I suggest is when we do these events, usually there is a presenter, and this topic is very important for everybody. So I want more people to get involved. This is not going to be like we talk to all you guys. It's more of a sharing experiences, because probably Jamie can confirm in this space there is a lot of bullshit, and it's very difficult to find that bullshit sometimes. You know, what was that guy who made a huge ICO and then was the cucumber fuck off?
Yes,
What was
there
the name?
were a number of people who did this. Actually, one of those was a marketing trick.
Okay.
Oh, it was a marketing. So the guy disappears. The website. So the guy disappears. The website goes to like a fuck all, like just a landing page, and he sends a picture from a beach. And basically, he disclosed that it's a marketing ploy when people were able to actually identify that he's in Egypt and that beach is in Egypt. So we actually don't know if what would have happened if his location was not discovered. I mean, it's just a marketing ploy. Might mean that it's his way of saying, oh yeah, I didn't actually scam you. Don't send like hitmen after me.
But the problem is that
This is, by the way, the microphone doesn't work obviously.
but for the video, yeah. So the problem is the world is full of a lot of bullshit at the moment. I mean, how many people, a growing amount of people think the world is flat, right? So you're talking about then a crypto scam, if people can't determine that the world is round, we have a bit of a problem. And so it's as much a product of the change in media. And so again, what's helpful now is we have a media that's professionalizing, but previously much of the crypto media were, the only way that they were financially viable was by promoting ICOs. So it wasn't in their interest to critique honestly ICOs. And so it became very difficult for most investors. You've got to remember most of the people that were participating in ICOs, this was the first thing they ever invested in. So they weren't even experienced investors. They wouldn't understand how to perform due diligence. And of course, as you said earlier, the kind of scam narrative was, well, we're creating a new financial system. We don't need VCs like me. They're just leeches. They're parasites. And of course, now we're coming full circle back where we're seeing equity coming back in vogue, because guess what? It gives you rights. If you invest in an equity-based business, and by the way, you can still be scammed by an equity-based business. Theranos on the West Coast was a huge multi-billion-dollar scam, scamming some of the biggest VCs in Silicon Valley. So the world is not immune from scams. I think it's a part product of the media. And the big problem I have, I know you're upset about this one because it's kind of damaged the reputation of Bulgaria. But I'm also really upset about the scam narrative generally, because the amount of journalists that I speak to at Reuters or the Financial Times, and all they want to talk about is the sensational stuff. And the sensational stuff is Brock Pierce or a scam here. It's not really the boring stuff, which is, well, we spent 12 months bunkered down building technology that you're never going to understand. They want to hear the sensational stuff. So I kind of hate the scam narrative. But I just think it's part product of the world we live in, the media, and kind of the nascency of the crypto space. The fact that the regulators deliberately left it in a gray area meant that people created opaque offshore structures. I mean, if you want to create a scam, the best way to do it is to be able to leverage offshore tax havens. But that was the norm in crypto because regulators wouldn't allow you to do it in a more structured way. So the regulators are actually as much to blame as the crypto community.
Well, generally, regulators, I think, are very slow to react to most things that are happening in the tech field. And also, they're very slow to react to scams. For example, regulators are very fragmented. As I mentioned, there are 195 countries. So what happens is one scam appears in one country, then goes to another, then to another, and maybe when the scam is in the 10th country, the regulators in the first country say, oh, wait, this is a scam, maybe let's do something about it. But this has spread already to many different countries. And it's following, especially OneCoin was following this pattern. It was simply moving too quickly for regulators to be able to react. Also what you mentioned is that, like, for example, crypto media, some of the crypto media was kind of their life and blood. Yeah, were complicit in the scams, because basically the fake ICO was giving you money to promote their fake product or service, and so what appeared is actually a whole ecosystem of interlinked players, like the marketing, the different exchanges, the listing service, the review agencies, basically the same thing that you have in the financial world, which has been has existed for a long time. Maybe it's a bit more stable. We had some bad experience in 2018. We know that it's almost certain that we're going to have a bad experience in the future with regular regulators and financial institutions and so forth and so on. But for, let's say, a period of 10 years, the things are a bit more stable in the regulated world. But again, not 100% sure there as well. So it was a whole ecosystem, and then that ecosystem still exists. I get personally in the email all the time some kind of media trying to sell me packages to get some kind of a media exposure of a project on their media, or to be listed on an exchange for this amount of money. And like these scammy coins, this is the most important thing for them. Like one of the most important things is to get listed on an exchange. So if they listed on some kind of exchange with $1,000 of a volume per day and 1 million fake volume, they can use this as marketing. So we got listed on this exchange, so you can now buy and sell, and look, our volume is so big. And even recently, a few days ago, for a second time it was announced that 90% of actually even Bitcoin volume is faked. So most of these exchanges, they are trying to stimulate a large volume, so that it's called wash trading, so that they can attract, they can show, like, come to our exchange or select our exchange because our exchange has a very high volume. Join us, and just you need to pay this little small fee, but then you get to this very reputable exchange, and your users or the people who are going to participate, hopefully in your ICO in the future, will be very, very happy with this and convinced. So the scams have always existed. They simply evolve as anything else in the world. And in the crypto space specifically, it's simply a specific industry in which scams kind of need to look in a specific way. But most definitely, there are a lot of scams in crypto as well.
Here, again, I want to kind of attract you to come by and share experience if you want, but here there are two big questions that come by. One is, first, there are a lot of actors in this area. One is the crypto exchanges. Don't they do enough due diligence to list the proper tokens? Nowadays, probably they do, but like a couple of years ago, they didn't. They were listing everything. Then, as you said, media, like I heard at Cointelegraph or some of these media guys, they were charging more 20k euro per post or something like that.
$5,000 per publication.
Well, the whole event circuit. I mean,
Also events.
Blockchain event.
Yeah.
I mean, every week somewhere in the world. There was a blockchain event somewhere in the world every week, from Singapore to Dubai. I mean, I went to most of them and just stopped going after a while, because their business model was very clearly ICO shilling. 50% of the agenda was panels full of people you'd never heard of, had no career before crypto, and talking about this alternative financial system and whatever. So, but I think the important thing, coming back to what I hate about the scam narrative, is what is a scam? Because actually, 90% of startups fail. Right? They're not scams, they're just bad startups. Right? And because startups are hard, to actually execute on a startup, to find product market fit, is really hard. And that's with professional investors and credible teams that aren't trying to defraud people. You then look at crowdfunding, which is kind of the precursor to ICOs, and they normally never deliver a product. You'd give them money, and you'd hope they'd eventually deliver a product, and most wouldn't be able to deliver a product. Were they scams? Maybe some of them, but generally no. I think the challenge with crypto was the product was money, right? So the innovation was money. So when the innovation is ultimately money or digital assets in a lot of instances, people aren't investing in the technology, as you saw. They're investing in the promise and expectation of profit. And so for me, this was one of if you spent 5 minutes with any lawyer, any securities lawyer, they would have not allowed you to create an expectation of profit in any jurisdiction. So the minute, for us, you see an ICO which promises any expectation, any return, ever, then...
That's a sign of scam.
Well, they haven't spoken to a securities lawyer, which means they don't care. I think that these telltale signs.
This is very important, what you're mentioning here, because at the end of the day, many ICOs, like nowadays probably it's a little bit different to get so much exposure because like kind of the market squeezed a little bit, but back in the days, and back in the days is 2 years ago, like this space moves fast, right? Yeah. You create a WordPress website, you create a sort of a nice graph of what you're gonna, decentralize your coffee shop with crypto, and then bam, you raise 10 million for whatever, 24 hours. And that was the typical thing. And there was no conversation about the product. The teams was probably put in place just, finding a couple of friends from the community and put their pictures on the website. So, like, isn't the whole space broken from the initiation of it? That's my question, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hog it too much.
I mean, I can take a little bit.
I have a question for you afterwards. Anyway,
Okay. So I think this kind of. I think this was kind of it's unable to escape this. You have this technology which allows you to create tokens, and then you see that projects in the past have raised millions, and then you say, well, let's try and do it. It's obviously it's easy, and what you need is simply a simple smart contract on Ethereum, most usually. Somebody to kind of like develop it a little bit so that it has your name, it has the supply and so forth. And as Ivo said, a WordPress website, and you can do an ICO. So it was kind of like this technology appeared suddenly, and everybody tried to make use of it. I think the idea for most of the 95% of the projects was, let's get the money now, as long as the hype is going, like it's happening, and then we'll see what we can do with the product. And it's very hard to say. I mean, usually it's hard to say which projects can really deliver and which cannot. But the super general rule of identifying scams or not being burned by scams is simply not to put your money in something that you don't understand, or that you don't know that somebody from the space who has been into the space for 5 years, let's say, or let's say a lawyer that can tell you what you need to do. If you don't have this kind of if you cannot do this kind of consultation with somebody, or you don't have the experience, simply don't do it. And why people do it is because of greed, usually. And if it's because of greed and you didn't do the due diligence, I think what is happening and what happened last year was an educational explosion on a global scale, that a lot of people got burnt by their bad decisions, and hopefully in the future they will not make those decisions again. So it was something like Intro to Cryptocurrencies and Financial Instruments 101 on a global scale. And I think this kind of, even though it's super bad and a lot of people lost money, I think it's very educational for people, and nothing like this has happened before on such a global scale. And I think something good will come out of it in the end.
Yeah, it was a very expensive lesson in common sense. Just one thing, and I'm going to close the media topic at least. But I used to run a media for a few months, so I can bash them a bit more. Basically, one of the crypto outlets, Breaker, they did actual journalism for a change, and they asked the 28 biggest crypto medias for a paid publication that will promote a project without disclosing that it's a paid publication. 20 out of the top 28 said yes. Just to give you an idea of the ulterior motives in this particular segment. Something else that was interesting is because we speak about obvious scammers and neck tattoo guys and all this stuff, but Ivy League kids also do that. There was a project called Munchie. It was actually backed by some of the big funds in the segment. And they were promising returns. So they got a cease and desist. The whole thing went underwater. There was another one called the Blockchain Terminal. and there were some like really, really big, like very public names. Turned out the CEO was a serial scammer. He changed his name, but so the fact that someone with a name is behind it doesn't necessarily mean that it's legit. Like high-profile people sometimes also are scammers, and yeah, because basically to maybe shift a bit out of the scam narrative, it's because there is this saying that really smart people look like very crazy people until they make it. And so I want to ask Jamie, like, how do you realize that someone is really smart, not really crazy, when they pitch you something that sounds out of this world and like, you know, crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I won't pretend that I can do that as an individual. So Outlier Ventures, we've got 30 people. Probably half of those are analysts. And, you know, they just track the space. They do all the due diligence. So by the time I see a project of maybe 95 that will come to us in a month, maybe I will only personally speak to 3. So fortunately, I rely on lots of other people, so I'm not stupid. I wouldn't say that I'm so clever that I couldn't be stupid. But yeah, the challenge is ultimately, and it kind of feeds into the closing off on the scam piece. So, you know, venture capital has been around for 60 plus years, coming out of Silicon Valley. It's a pretty mature industry now, and it's definitely not perfect. And of course, there's definitely a good argument to say, especially on the West Coast, it's a small club of people that kind of benefit the most from this early stage. And then they dump something on an ICO on the market, right? So however, there are many mechanisms that have been developed as a consequence of venture, and equity is a really great protector for shareholders. Things like vesting. So, you know, making sure that you're not just giving a load of money to somebody.
Yeah, just explain what vesting is.
Yeah, so vesting is basically either time-based, so, you know, you achieve, you kind of, in the case of tokens, you get tokens or Bitcoin or whatever you've been paid in based upon hitting milestones. Those milestones can be, you know, you've delivered something technically, or they can be time-based. But effectively, the incentive is for the person to deliver something, and not just, you know, you give even the best person $1 billion, and they're going to get a bit distracted, right? You know, the hunger to kind of work really hard and deliver something is less. So, you know, vesting is a well-worn path. It's something that we do with our investments. So the founders, the return must vest 3 to 5 years, and us as a VC, an advisor, ours vests alongside them. So basically, when somebody else invests in an outlier investment, they know that we are locked into its long-term success. Now, this is very normal in the venture space, but in the crypto space, it's like, why would you do that? Because, of course, most people they're not building a brand or a franchise in the space. They see an opportunity they're definitely never going to get again to make millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. So they took it. And it was easy because, and you could see there's a difference. They went after consumer propositions because a consumer proposition is something that anybody can understand. And therefore, they're appealing to a retail investor who's an unsophisticated investor. They're not going to ask the high-profile questions. And that's when you saw the celebrity endorsement. So show them a face, like any brand. Show them a face that they recognize, and you borrow some of the trust. But coming back to the main question, you know, for us, the challenge in venture is all about managing risk. So on the one hand, you always want to be the first investor to find the crazy genius that's going to change the world. But on the other hand, you want to de-risk it. So you say, well, show me that you've done it before. Or, you know, show me you've got some traction with this business. And of course, the more you de-risk it, the less of a premium and opportunity it is for an investor. So you're always trying to find the balance between not being too early and not being too late. The reality for Outlier, even though we were very early in the blockchain space, compared to Andreessen or Draper, I mean, Draper is a family VC franchise. I think they have 3 or 4 generations. They basically invented venture. You know, they get the best deals without doing anything really now. I mean, they're very good, don't get me wrong, but the best deals come to them because they want Draper's brand association to signal this is a good project. we had to hustle for ours. We still do, which is why I'm here. You know, I'm not just sat in London expecting that the best projects are going to come to me. I'm here in the Baltics. I'm going to Eastern Europe. I'll go wherever I think there's talent and there's opportunities that nobody else is going to see. I want to see it first. But then you have to have some risk associated with that. And so you can manage that risk in a couple of ways. One is by the due diligence process. The other one is by a diversification in your portfolio. So you have some things that are more risky than others. But then, you know, if you meet somebody who is, let's call them a genius. I mean, that's a fairly nebulous term, but let's say you meet a genius. Certainly in the things that we invest in at the protocol layer, these are highly technical people. Vitalik is a really good example. You know, in any other context, Vitalik is not investable. You put him in front of a classic VC, they wouldn't have even had the meeting, right? So in this space, because the innovation is so technical, the likelihood is this person is not going to be a commercial person. So the way you assess them is very different. So obviously the great thing that Joe Lubin did was he saw that and said, well, I'm going to be the person that helps commercialize it. So for us, we do a similar thing. So we look for technical geniuses, you know, really great technical teams, and then we wrap around them the commercial component. We have the commercial network of Bosch, Siemens, Daimler. We help them figure out how they'll commercialize that product or build a commercial ecosystem on top. Otherwise, you're just hoping for something that doesn't exist, right? You're never going to find a proven, seasoned entrepreneur that's a technical genius, commercially brilliant, and is going to give you a great deal, right? I wish this, if one's in the room, but please, we go for dinner.
Yeah, actually, this is a great point. In Eternity, actually, we also have something like an investment arm, and what we are looking for primarily is very technical people, like people, teams of technical people that can show experience in the sphere, that can show that they understand how, for example, smart contracts or hopefully even like core block, like protocols work. And these are the teams that have the highest possibility to deliver a product in the end. And really, the primary point in the blockchain space, I would say, is yes, you need the people who can do the R&D, because the whole space is, as was mentioned, it's very, very technical. It's very research and development centered. So you need the people with either proven track record to have delivered complex like software infrastructures in the past, or have participated in the project before and have delivered a product that works. Hopefully, it works even today. Or some kind of experience that is very relevant to the product that they are trying to build. And this is really, really, really important.
I was just going to build on that, actually. Okay. Because I think it's a really, really good point. So one of the strengths and weaknesses of the crypto space is, on the one hand, especially at the protocol layer, you can crowdsource the due diligence. So, because really you're not investing in an individual or a team, a core team, although they might be the genesis of the protocol, you're investing in a community. So is there a technical community that has the need for this? And is there enough of a community that are contributing to the GitHub code base? Is it just 2-3 guys that have never had any history on GitHub before? So depth of community, the problem with that is you then have this weird incentive where you have more speculators coming in and are just trolling other communities. And this comes back to the scam narrative. Almost every project, even the good ones, have been called a scam. Now, how many people can actually assess what is really a scam or not when the point is largely a technical one, especially when you start thinking through a quantum cryptography and is it really quantum proof? I mean, who the hell really can say if something's going to be quantum proof or not? Who really understands? There's maybe 5-10 people on the planet that fully understand.
Yes. Maybe you want to say something? Yeah.
I just want to point out that something that Jamie said that is very central to the discussion about scams. He's basically saying that outsized returns usually entail outsized risks. And if somebody's promising a risk-free return, it just doesn't exist. It's a perpetuum mobile that they're promising. And yeah, we have an empty chair here that we pass the microphone through for a reason. So just someone please join.
We've got some diversity.
Terrible. Yeah, finally. Yeah, I wanted actually to get in the point about like everything now being scam. Another problem with the ICOs is like many didn't deliver just because like the whole market crashed in the beginning like a year ago, and many of the like even the ones that raised millions and millions, tens and hundreds of millions, they didn't liquidate their assets. So they literally, they lost like 80-90% of their assets. So they, in the end, they just couldn't deliver. And everyone's like, gosh, you have hundreds of millions, and you couldn't even like, I don't know, just launch your mainnet or something. They literally couldn't deliver just because they lost all their money, just because they had the technical part, they had the marketing, they had like everything. They didn't have the financial part. So nobody thought about the financials, and we still see it. Yeah, and I wanted also to say it's not only like, I hope I'm not famous for that already. Like I was urged to come here and talk about it. It's not only ICOs that are like you can be scammed by. It's also exchanges, and I have this like really bitter experience of being hacked. It wasn't actually me. It was like the exchange was the very page, like the website. It was hijacked. So you go to the very page. You do like everything you do usually, and all your funds are just like go through some channel. Yeah, I can say it. I have no problem like with saying it's. Yeah, actually, but it's not the same case. They had a lot of cases, but I didn't check it. And it was like the hype then. I thought I'm like an amazing speculator. Lost like 70% of my like portfolio.
You do well. That's doing well.
Really? No, I'm okay now. I'm okay. I really caught up. But at the time it was really painful. It was after Delta. So a DEX, like the only one at the time. It's just someone hijacked the website, and I literally gave them my key.
But you know where the majority of fraudulent volume, the majority of the fraudulent volume that's happened in crypto that is definitely scams and fraud is Telegram. I mean, Telegram, it's almost criminal, right? And of course, most social media platforms will, there's many reasons why they are reluctant to delete users, because actually that then means they have control, and certainly in the US there's certain laws which they want to bypass about responsibility of being a media outlet. But ultimately, as soon as you begin an ICO offering or an exchange offering, there's immediately 10 groups that look exactly like the official one, with the admins' exact pictures, contacting people, asking them to transfer money. So I'm pretty sure of 90% of the money that was a bona fide scam, not just somebody running out of runway or whatever, is largely to Telegram. And it's amazing that they've got away with it. It's such a poor experience to be carrying out financial activity, but here we are, right?
Yes, maybe I can also share two scams that are. One is currently running related to Eternity. People are creating pages, Facebook pages, basically all the time that mimic our main page, and they are talking about some kind of airdrop or something that like some kind of tokens that you will get. And even today I had three people telling me that that they're receiving some messages from a fake Eternity page and what could they do and so forth. And this has been going on for about 2 weeks now. So we report the page, maybe Facebook deletes it, they create a new page, and this goes on and on and on.
Telegram is ignoring them, totally.
Yeah, Telegram maybe. Yeah, another type of scam was a scam related to wallets. So, you know, there is this My Ether wallet and also My Crypto Now. The same thing that happened here was simply a completely similar, identical site that looks like My Crypto wallet. People go there, enter their private key, and suddenly all of their tokens, because it's an Ethereum wallet, so you not only store Ethers, but also all kinds of tokens on your account. And everything ERC20, just basically you lose it immediately. So you always need to check the little green what is it? The lock. Sometimes it's a lock, sometimes it's something green, but it's the certificate, the SSL certificate that, or bookmark the page and always go to this specific URL. Although sometimes they steal the URL even, and you are redirected, although you're going to the right URL, you are redirected to another URL. In your case was that. So all kinds of different scams. I personally only use hardware wallets. I never store my coins, tokens on exchanges. Or if I store, it's a very, very small amount. It's a very bad practice to do this, especially if these exchanges are not the ones considered regulated currently, and there are only like 5 or 6 exchanges out of hundreds.
Let's go with the questions, because
let's do the questions.
One of us to come here and speak, you know.
I
Go with the
can
questions.
vacate
Sure. I'll just, okay.
I can swap a seat if you want.
More people, if anyone has questions, just come.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
We're going to end up with 3 people sat there.
Okay, I just wanted to mention 2 different scams, since we're just like mentioning all the different scams. You probably remember all the different variations of you just send 2 Ethereum to that wallet, and we'll give away like 10 Ethereums back, and all the different variations of that. And also, I mean, I've always taken like really good measures, precautions, so that I don't get scammed. But back in 2017, in one of the ICOs that I was participating, I don't really want to mention the name, but you know, the investors were supposed to receive an email, you know, with a private, I mean, like individual location and address that was supposed to be allocated specifically for them. I just didn't notice that on the email I received, well, somebody somehow managed to get my own personal email, you know, so I received an email from the same URL address of the company that was just hidden, and there was that little tick that was saying that email is not secure, so I didn't see that, and I totally sent that investment, you know. So I never received anything back, so I had to do the same thing so that I can participate with the amount I desire to that ICO. But you know, just be careful and double check everything. So
I have something really cool to share on that. Just a point on how scams target greedy people. Somebody by accident leaked the private keys to an address that was full of tokens. It had something like $5,000 worth of tokens and didn't have enough ETH. So to do a transaction on the Ethereum network, you need Ether, and so people were like, oh, there is a $5,000 worth of tokens, so they'll be sending ETH to that address, but it was a smart contract, so as soon as the ETH hits the address, it just gets redirected to another wallet. So people would like continuously send ETH, like reaching for that like $5,000 worth of tokens, and the person who set it up, they were just like stealing the ETH. So yeah, just don't be greedy.
I mean, the problem is, remember at the beginning I said that we kind of look at crypto assets and ledgers as this new economic layer that's native to the web. And so we're carrying out all this economic activity without the usual safety net and security of financial institutions, right? So the burden is then on an individual who, you know, I mean, everybody knows, not just in crypto, but generally how insecure most of the things that we do are. if somebody believes there's an incentive to actually hack us, right? It's just most of the time they don't think it's worth it. And then equally, in terms of the issuers, the people that were issuing tokens, they were, again, small teams. They weren't financial service professionals. They didn't have the appropriate levels of security. And so this is like a boom for people that are working, bad actors, right? They just see all these vulnerabilities that they can exploit. So it's also a product of it being a kind of a new experimental layer that we just don't have the appropriate security for.
All right, I'm Bobby. Some of you maybe know me. For the last 1 year, we run consulting and marketing services for ICOs. Basically, the ICOs right now are completely dead, but still. Yeah, kinda as well. This is why I'm here, and I wanna say a few things from my point of view. For me, one of the faults is basically that everybody who actually provided services for the ICOs, starting with the marketing and the consulting for a campaign, the ICO campaign for a blockchain startup, going to the media outlets, and this is something that I want to point you. At some point last year, I got the price lists of pretty much all of the major media outlets. And it was at some point ridiculous, like CoinDesk or Cointelegraph, they were charging you for like 5 or 600,000, 5,000 euro per article. It was completely insane. At some point, they was actually, especially Cointelegraph, they was selling packages for 20,000 euro for 4 articles plus social media exposure and etc. Yeah. So this is something that I want to point that still, if you read something in the media, it's not always the true thing. Like we have this in the traditional news right now, in the television, now we have it in this community as well. So if you read something on Cointelligence or something else there, it's not true, 100% true, only because it's an article in a fancy blockchain crypto media outlet. Another thing that, if I want to return back to the presentation, the bigger the party, the fancier the party, the bigger the scam is. All this started with, if you know Pixelon, one of the greatest scam of .com boom. Pixelon, they held in 1999 iBash party. They spent over $20 million in Las Vegas. It was like the biggest event of the year out there. Actually, they have the idea of YouTube back then, but still, they completely spent so much money. They didn't deliver pretty much nothing there, but still, they get like a huge success back then. So yeah, bigger the party, bigger the scam. Another thing from my experience, for the last 1 year, we have been contacted from a lot of ICOs, and of course, 90% of them were complete scam. I want to tell you one story from a country that, at least my perspective for honest people and stuff like this, is Japan. An ICO from Japan contacted us. The guy was really interested to do this kind of ICO, and eventually us to provide him with some services. We started with the first call. Believe it or not, I don't know, maybe some of you know that actually in Japan the people don't know English. Everybody will assume that they know English, but actually most of them, they're not good in English. So there was one guy who was kind of responsible for the marketing and the CEO of this ICO. So we started, the first call was like 2 hours. Before that, we sent our offer, what we can do as a services to them. And This guy said, yeah, everything is great here. We should do this definitely. This is good. This is good. But tell me at the bottom, tell me what you're going to do to bring investment, to bring some money. I said, guys, you even don't have a good website. The Twitter account of the ICO is basically the personal account of the CEO itself. So, and I said, guys, you have like zero PR and zero marketing and exposure online. Definitely nobody is going to give you a single dollar there. And we spent like a week and maybe I spent 10 hours of talking with these guys every night because of the time difference. And he said, okay, we will buy all of these services, but if you promise us to give all the know-how and all the contacts and connections where we can get a good financing and funding. I said, look, we cannot promise you that you're getting any funding or something like this, but still you need a good exposure and you need to deliver and show something, because on their website there was only this kind of graph that it's all the way up, like you're putting $1 today and you have 1,000 in a year. And then I said, okay, I want to make a video call with you and just show me your team. Do you at least have a team there? And it was our last call. They never called again. And really quick, another one was an ICO from Poland. I'm saying all these things because for me one of the biggest red flags is check the teams, see is there any teams at all, and really check into these people, make live video chat with them, ask somebody else from the community, from the blockchain community in this country for these people. These guys in Poland, they were basically two people who was trying to build a platform, something on the blockchain, musically related, stuff like this. And I said, okay, but you're two people. Yeah, we can hire people like you, another company for something else. So again, we spent like 5 hours of call with them. And at the end, we said, we can do it with you because this is something really shady. You're basically two people there. This is not serious.
I think there's a really... I think you mentioned it earlier, but one of the big challenges is that this is for the first time a global financial market. Every other market is not global, it's very localized. You have to go on certain exchanges, certain securities can only be sold to certain people through certain venues. This is the first time we've had a truly global 24/7 financial market. And so actually a lot of scams, you saw Chinese, literally they would just translate a white paper from English to Chinese, presented as a new thing coming out of China, and of course nobody knew because they couldn't read English. So it's not just the regulators that are struggling with how global this is, but it's also consumers and language barriers and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's great we have this global innovation, but on the other hand, we're just not set up to be able to manage it.
All right, I think if there aren't any... okay.
So, hello guys, I wanted to go back on the previous topic. No, thank you. About protecting of scams. There's another funny way of you getting scam that is a bit technical. And I want to start by asking like 1 or 2 questions. So when you're trying to send a crypto to somebody, how many of you are actually copying the address of the receiver and pasting it to the base? Everybody? Everyone does. Okay, so how many of you actually type it manually there? Okay, nobody? So there was one scam that was basically like a keylogger running on your background. It was looking on your clipboard basically of what you're copying, but instead of you looking for your private key or whatever to steal your money, it was actually looking for address, and at any point you're copying something that looks like an address, it actually goes and replaces it with the hacker's address. So when you copy the address of the one that you want to send the money and you go and paste it there, it is actually replaced by the hacker's address. So if you don't pay attention to who you're sending the money, you just send the money to them, and that's it. That's it.
It's important because when I send every time crypto, I check the address which I've pasted to the one that I see, which is kind of a small way to get it. But
yeah, this is actually given in hardware wallets. When you're sending something in a hardware wallet, usually it asks you, actually every hardware wallet asks you to confirm on the device itself what address are you sending the crypto to. And I always check. And I prefer Trezor just for this reason, because it displays the whole address on the screen. Ledger, it displays it, but it kind of moves around, so you need to
Well, take your time and take
Exactly.
it letter by letter.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, I mean.
Exactly, and also on the Trezor, it's just like, you need to be faster.
Well, yes, this is what I don't like. It's a minor thing, but I just don't like it for the Trezor. You just see the whole address on the screen immediately, and you can see, like, for example, I check the first 6 and the last 6 symbols. I'm not checking the whole address. And then you confirm on the device. So that's why I use hardware wallets. Are there any other questions or comments? Anyone wants to share something?
It's like a therapy session.
Yeah.
Let it out, we switch on the camera, and cry.
I may be the most ignorant person in the room today regarding blockchain, but I want to ask an ignorant, innocent question. There's been a lot of discussion today about scams and fake value creation in the blockchain space. Can we invert the perspective, and you educate me maybe in 3 bullet points or however many bullets you like? What is the most real part of blockchain today in terms of value creating businesses that have end customers not within the blockchain ecosystem? So what's most real, and have you had exits yourself in your fund in those particular areas?
Okay, I'm just gonna one comment quickly. Focused on Bitcoin, the value there. It's basically a system that is not controlled by an institution, a governance, or any kind of let's say a company, a single institution. So it's not like a central bank. That you can use to exchange value on a global scale, so you can do transactions in cryptocurrency with very low fees for any kind of transfer. It doesn't matter if I'm sending it to you or if I'm sending it to the other world, like to the somewhere else in the world, to the other world. Yeah. So and it's parallel. Basically, you can use it without. You can open an account without providing any kind of KYC. You just download a wallet. And you can, if somebody sends you Bitcoin, so you buy from exchange it, you can start exchanging this. Nobody can stop you to do this. And finally, it's completely transparent. It functions 24 hours a day, every day. You can use the Bitcoin network whenever you want. Nobody basically can stop you if you have electricity and internet. This is a must. And it's very hard to attack. Basically, it's very hard to stop this system because it's decentralized. Many different nodes of this system exist. Many different copies of the transactional history of this ledger of this system exists. And currently it's functioning not so much for payments, but some kind of a long-term store of value, like digital gold, let's say. So this is a value proposition, the value proposition that I can give you from a decentralized open system, which is Bitcoin, and this has been the value proposition from the very start since 2009 of Bitcoin. But maybe, more examples.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that's not the answer you wanted, though, right? I mean, it is a answer, but it's probably not the answer.
It's not exactly what.
Yeah, and I know it because I speak to journalists a lot, and they rightfully say, okay, but show me a business that is leveraging blockchain at scale. And so I'm going to give you a simple, and it's, again, general terms, but you can think about the use cases. Now, that doesn't mean these are being deployed yet, because if you remember, at the very beginning I said, at the moment, we should be focusing on building the infrastructure, right? So in the same way that you have HTTP or SMTP, they just make interoperability happen. They make certain activities happen on the web without you thinking about them invisibly. So I personally don't think the innovation of a digital asset like Bitcoin is that people will be buying coffee with it. Maybe they will, But I don't think it's about people knowingly adopting a new digital currency. And nor do I think the main use cases are around consumer use cases. But to speak generally, the main innovation that ledgers and digital assets allow are, for the first time ever, we now can have digital scarcity. Now that sounds really boring and really basic, but if you think about what's wrong with the web and the internet right now and how it's damaged copyright and the music industry, it's decimated, anything that had value that touched the internet usually lost value immediately because it became copyable. Equally, because of the way the web was invented without a digital scarcity, we ended up with mediators, central platforms like Facebook, Google, which filled the evolutionary niche and allowed us to have peer-to-peer value transfer. It's not peer-to-peer, it's through Facebook. And as a consequence, they own our data and they do things with that we might not like. So if you look at the innovation of digital scarcity, all of a sudden we can restore the idea of things on the internet having value that can be transferable and be retained. Now I'll let that percolate with you for a few nights when you go to sleep and you start thinking about it, you go, oh shit, actually that's pretty transformational. And you could see it immediately being applied to the music industry and the film industry and a number of other things. But actually what it means is you can carry out economic activity only on the internet. So the argument is that Bitcoin is the first money that is native to the internet. It only exists on the internet. But because it's open source, we can reconfigure it. So you've basically got this toolkit where you can all of a sudden create digital programmable assets. So what do you want to program it for is the question, actually. So you could imagine all of a sudden a lot of discussion about digital twins, the idea that my phone can all of a sudden have a digital version of itself on the internet that can track its ownership, so provenance use cases. Because it's a digital asset, it can be infinitely divisible, so it's fractional. So if you think about the whole alternative asset class, from Picassos to diamonds, all of a sudden, anybody as a group of people can participate in fractions of ownership of these assets. So it's going to unlock entirely new asset classes that most people can't participate in. So on the one hand, it's a very big financial experiment, but the thing that we're most interested in, so the things that we invest in, are all of a sudden you have this native economic layer to the web where devices can start to transfer data between one another and digital value between one another. So many of the use cases we can't even fathom yet, right? There's economic value that's going to be unlocked from IoT devices being able to pass value. Hey, I've got some data, do you want some data? To another device. So it's going to unlock a totally new economic value, and on the other hand, it's going to fix what's broken in the web. I'll give you one final example, I'm sure you've got several. Is identity. So at the moment, the internet does not have a native identity layer. Now this was deliberate, right? If you read the Cyberpunk manifesto, they explicitly declare this new cyberspace, this new frontier will not have identity and property because these are tools of the state. So it's a very libertarian ideal that this new space, we have a social contract. The difference was the social contract was just that. So it was an understanding between a group of academics that were like one another that we will use the web in a certain way. But that doesn't scale to the population of the internet that's now, that we now have. And so identity is a really big problem. You think of most of the problems, the reason why Facebook exists is because I can't have an identity without Facebook saying so. And then as a consequence, all the data that's mine is associated to that identity that is explicitly theirs, as well as all the content. So one of the key innovations of blockchain, or blockchains, distributed ledgers generally, is all of a sudden I can have a place on the ledger, which might just be a very long number, right? But there can only be one of me on the internet, and I can associate value to it. That can be my personal data, it can be my digital assets, it can be my Bitcoin, and that thing can follow me around, and I can prove and verify that I am who I say I am. And again, if you think about the internet where I can prove my identity and own it, it's a totally new internet. So I know it's kind of general terms, but if you think about this toolkit and what it's going to enable, it's truly transformational.
Just a couple of more like examples, like with the identity, not only there are even working projects, one at least. Okay. Yeah, reading my mind. So anyways, yeah. So actually you told about that example already, but it's a huge problem, like literally nowadays with immigrants. They're not only immigrants, they're like also political refugees and war refugees that you have no identity to match with, even because it was burnt. I don't know, a bomb fell on the server where everything was like kept and so on. So this is a huge problem that is now being taken care of. There is a working project, and I see you know about it. That is taking care of it, and it's
we know Tycoon.
Yeah, Tycoon.
They're using
yeah. They're awesome. They didn't in the hype of the ICO, they didn't do an ICO. They didn't need like, okay, they need funding, you know, but they really did it like the CEO is actually he is a refugee, so he knows about this problem, and it's like this is a really like really new and really like it's a trailblazing thing. It's only blockchain unlocks that. Another thing, like totally different, I would say different from financial business, apart from the identity part, I love the intersection between IoT and blockchain. I can talk about it for an hour maybe, but totally different, governance. Like imagine voting, and you know, like we have a saying in Bulgaria that it doesn't matter how you vote and from whom you vote, it matters who counts the votes. Not only in Bulgaria, to be honest. And imagine like your vote being there, you know who you voted for, it's like it's anonymous for everyone else, but for example you can check in, you can see, yeah, it was counted, it's there, nobody can change it forever. Like, and you know, I really voted for this person and nobody can count it wrongly. So a lot of, like, many more examples, but I think...
One final thing in this connection, there's a really good comment. What I normally say backwards is think of all the business models that exist on the internet today that don't exist if you no longer need mediators, trust brokers on the internet. Almost every Web 2.0 business model is oriented towards brokering trust between you and somebody else. And when you have a Web 3 paradigm where you can basically devolve trust to the ledger, to the internet protocols themselves, all of a sudden you remove pretty much most of the Web 2 platform monopolies, whether it's Uber, Facebook, arguably, maybe not Amazon because it relies too much on physical infrastructure, but maybe long term. So we're still a long way, we should be a long way, maybe 5 years, I think, from seeing meaningful mass adoption of dApps, because there's a lot of infrastructure to be built, but this toolkit's going to enable it. One final example that you should go and check out is Brave browser. Forget the BAT token, I don't want to comment on that, but the browser itself, just like the Web 1 was triggered by Netscape, I think Web 3 is going to be triggered by a browser, decentralized browser that is privacy respecting. All of a sudden you're going to own your identity in the browser, you're going to have a wallet in the browser, all of these things, right? And you can earn from engagements that happen with media properties and so on. So the problem is it's a technical innovation, it's a business model innovation, and we're still quite far, social innovation, we're still very far from realizing a use case that somebody can adopt, because at the moment the technology doesn't really scale, it's not usable, it's built by nerds, it's not built by UX product professionals. But this is going to come.
Yeah, so finally, maybe, okay, one more question. But
it's not really a question, I just wanted to add something to his question, to your question. But, you know, the guys already covered most of the stuff. However, for me, honestly, the one more thing that really adds like real value to, I mean, like a real product or something, it's the fact that basically the blockchain eliminates that like middle layer that is necessary to create the level of trust. So when you are using the blockchain, basically you can verify that a certain event that has happened is true. And I just want to tell you like a little story because 2 weeks ago I was in Amsterdam attending a blockchain talks event over there. And I met one really interesting guy who was actually the CEO of one company that is doing something that really impressed me because, as you may probably know, over here in Bulgaria, we have a huge issue with corruption in the public sector. So what this guy basically is doing is he's inventing that system that is blockchain based and it's publicly verifying the projects. For example, if you have something like a big project, for example, to renovate a street or a facility or whatever, they are basically verifying the whole project and making sure that all the expenses are recorded on the blockchain. So basically, there's absolutely no issue there is no room for corruption. So this way, you're sort of creating value by saving a lot of money that would otherwise go to some shady ways and stuff like that. For me, that was a huge example.
One small thing. Just for
Everyone's always got a story.
one last one. No, just what you said. That's awesome. That's a great example. Like very big. Like it's really in line with the values of blockchain generally. Like trustlessness, immutability, like getting the intermediary and so on. The thing is, one of the problems that is being like taken care of. One of the biggest when you like dig deeper and deeper in blockchain. In blockchain is the technology generally, is who actually puts the information there. So that's what oracles are for. That's why I'm yeah, of course, eternity. They're famous for their oracles. And that's why I'm like such a fan of IoT and blockchain. Like if you have a device that will put the information and no one interferes with it, so like you suppose it's true, and then like comes everything else, like the immutability, trustlessness, and so on. Like that.
By the way, before we go, I want to get a selfie with the audience. Before everyone,
Sure, do it. While you're doing it, I'm just gonna finish the meeting a little bit. With me as well.
Okay. Before everyone gets up and leaves. Okay, everybody wave.
All right, guys. So, one more.
Back here, of course.
All right, guys. So this discussion actually goes a little bit into permissioned private blockchains and public open blockchains, and how do you really, what is decentralization, and how do you achieve decentralization? And we can continue this discussion. I have reserved some places in this club in the center of Sofia. It's on Tsarkoyan number 6, Tsarkoyan 6. So whoever wants to continue the discussion for like scams or decentralization about this, basically the parallel economy which is being created, you are welcome to join us there. And thank you very much for being here. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you for everyone from the audience who actually participated. I think it was a very interesting discussion. Thank you, and see you next time.